Okay, so we're going to work on the A level for modeling with quadratics. And so this is still related to that learning target, except this time we are actually going to find the equation given a set of points. So I'm not going to start you with an equation. You're going to find it. You're going to do a quadratic regression. And we're going to do this on the TI-30 or TI-84 plus calculator. So if you haven't gotten one of those yet from me, please go get one. You can pause the video. Okay, so this is a lot different than using Desmos, but it also does a lot of cool stuff that you necessarily can't do in Desmos. So that's why we're going to use this. So here's our set of data points. If you notice, there's some space for all of these after all of these steps. That's for you to record the actual buttons that I'm pressing so that you can go back and reference it when you go to the practice problems. Okay, so we're going to enter the data into the calculator in two different lists. So we need a list of the X values and we need a list of the Y values. So if you've never used this calculator, or if it's been a while, we're going to press on. And what I'm going to suggest that we do before I even enter anything is to clear the memory. That way I don't have to worry about clearing out lists or plots being on or off or anything. So we're going to all start on like in a fresh slate. So I'm going to press second and this plus sign here, and that will take me to a list that says memory. And I'm going to go to reset, and you can do that by pressing 7 or just scrolling down. And yes, I want to reset my RAM. So I'm going to press enter. And it's like, confirming, are you sure? Yes. So I press reset number 2 or scroll down to the 2 and press enter. All right. And you're good to go when it says RAM cleared. Okay. So now we're all starting with a fresh slate. So in order to enter the list of the X and the Y values, we're going to go to this button that says stat. And you're given the option here of edit, and that's what we actually want. This is about editing the list that we're going to make right now. So it's already on the 1, which is what we want. I'm going to press enter. And you'll see that I have some blank lists here. We want list 1 to represent our X values, and we want list 2 to represent our Y values. So I'm going to enter those in here. And my suggestion is that you do this with me so that you can practice and kind of get used to how this calculator works, because it doesn't necessarily work like Desmos or like your phone or like, the computer. So I'm going to enter in my X values. I'm going to put in 20. And you notice it's just down here. And I'm going to press enter, and then it will pop up here in the actual list. So I'm going to enter all of these as quickly as I can so as to save time. As I said, you should probably do this with me, so you can just get used to how this calculator operates. All right, there's all my X values. And I'm going to just toggle over here. And that gives me to the beginning of my Y values. So you want to make sure that you're lining these up correctly, because if you're not, then you're going to get something totally different than the actual answer. So I'm going to put my Y values in, 2.5, 2.5. And again, I'm making sure I'm lining up here. So I'm on 40. It should be 25.2. That's good. If you notice, I have two 25.8s. So just be careful that you don't accidentally do that once. 25.1, 24. And I've got a 19.5. Okay. So hopefully I have the same amount of X values as I do Y values, which I do, which is good. So I now have a list in the calculator. Now, if I go to the graph, I'm not going to see anything because I haven't told the calculator to turn the stats plot on. So in order to do that, and I'm on number 2 right here where it says create scatter plot, we're going to press second and Y equals, because it says stat plot above it. And then you can see your stat plots. You can turn them on or off, and you can change some other things about them. We're just going to turn this one on. My cursor's already on the 1. I'm going to press enter. And my cursor is blinking on the on. I'm going to press enter again. Okay, so now it's definitely on. If I go to the graph button, I can see my graph. Okay, well, it doesn't look like anything's there. So it's entirely possible we need to zoom out. So I'm just going to zoom out using the zoom function. And I'm going to go to number 3 here. So just by telling it to zoom out, it doesn't actually zoom out yet. You have to press enter from where you want to zoom out from. So I'm going to press enter. Okay, well now I'm starting to see some of my dots over here. I'm going to zoom out one more time. Okay, now I can actually see kind of a quadratic here. Now, just like the Desmos calculator, you can actually change the windows manually and change the actual values. But for our purposes, this is going to work just fine. So I can see all of my scatter plot here. Now the calculator is going to do some work for us. We are going to get the equation in standard form for what these scatter plots kind of represent. So to do that, we're going to go back to the stat button. And instead of using edit, we're going to use calc. And if you notice, there's a variety of different things that it can do. This calculator does a lot of great stuff that you might use in your later classes. But for our purposes today, we're just going to go to Quadreg, which is the quadratic regression. So you can either just press the 5, or you can scroll down till your cursor's on the 5 and press enter. So we've given it a command, but we have not executed the command yet. So just because it says quadreg here doesn't mean it's done anything. I actually have to press enter after that. Okay, now it's giving me some good information. Now I see here standard form, and it's telling me what the A value is, the B value, and the C value. So for our purposes, we're just going to round to the hundredths. And I'm going to write that equation on this blank line that I have here for you. So this A value is negative 0.0. I'm going to go to the thousands on that one just to be sure. X squared. And then I've got 1.37x. And I've got minus 7.14. All right, so I now have an equation. So now we're kind of like where we were for the entire learning target, where I've been providing the equation for you, and now we're going to interpret it. So we're going to put it in the graphing calculator, this equation that we just wrote down. And we want to just make sure that it matches our points. So in order to enter an equation, we go to y equals, and I'm going to enter this equation here. And if you don't remember, when you get to a variable, you're going to use this button here that says x, t, theta, and n. That's our x button. So we're going to use that. We're going to square it. That's our squared button here. And then plus 1.37x. And then minus 7.14. Okay, I don't need to press enter or anything. In order to actually see the graph, I need to go back to the graph button. And you can kind of see how it went exactly through, or quite nicely through, our scatter plot.